What is up? Welcome into this Thursday episode of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I don't know about you, Kyle, but we kind of got the hurricane. It kind of missed us. I didn't even get rain.
Being non-hurricane guys, like we're not used to hurricanes, I didn't fully know what to expect, and I didn't want to ask too many questions to seem like a total dumbass because everybody here is such a seasoned vet with the hurricane. And I know it's going to affect everybody differently, but I'm sitting around last night. I'm like, when's this hurricane going to come? I did wake up at 2 a.m. to the sound of what I thought was a helicopter. Turns out we have like an industrial grade generator, and it sounded like a Black Hawk helicopter was hovering above my pool last night. But we just lost power, not much damage, didn't even lose the pillows off the back deck. But there's a lot of people throughout the state of Florida, probably millions of people that are really struggling this morning. So we're not as lucky as them. I want to give a big shout out to those people. They're probably not even listening right now. Power, internet, a lot of stuff is out. I hope everybody's safe and you've maintained contact with your loved ones. And we're excited to talk football. We're remote today. We're from our houses. Mike and I are going to be building out our home studios as this thing goes in case stuff like this happens, or if there's emergency podcasts we have to do for, let's say, Robert Saleh being fired or Devontae Adams going somewhere. But this is nice. It's a good place to be. I miss you, buddy. I miss seeing you. And we get to see each other this way.
I know 2 shows today doing this, but I will say we are the lucky ones. Not everyone was so lucky. My fiance, her grandparents actually live just north of Tampa. And he said that they could see the generators. He saw blue glows from the generators just exploding for the transformers on the poles because it was just so bad. So hopefully there's not too much damage on the West Coast. But yes, obviously praying for them. All right, let's get to our first off the ball, though. We got the full preview coming here after this. But we wanted to start with a couple new starters around the NFL, one via injury, one just because the Raiders are a mess right now. But we got Spencer Rattler. Talked about it yesterday. We said, why not roll with the rookie? He looked a lot better in preseason than Jake Haener, even though Jake Haener came in last week. What do we expect from both these guys, Jake Haener and AOC? No, not that AOC, Aiden O'Connell for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, I think if we're talking about these new quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler is a guy that's been supremely confident since the first time we were introduced to him as like a middle schooler. And I remember his first introduction to like the media space was him talking some smack on one of those reality shows about young hotshot quarterbacks. And I think he did a really good job. Getting back on track in terms of public perception. Obviously, people really loved him in college. And people were saying that he was, as Leger put, he was spinning the laces off the football when he showed up in New Orleans. And people in New Orleans took note of that. And obviously, Derek Carr started hot for Coach Kubiak, and the offense looked to be historically good at the beginning of the season. The oblique injury gets Carr out of the game. Now we get to see this young hotshot Spencer Rattler. And going against this defense, we're obviously going to see a ton of pressure. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of built-in ejector seats Sean Payton puts in this offense for Spencer Rattler. Obviously, they have the personnel to be able to get out of some tough spots, but it's going to come down to Spencer Rattler being able to see it and delivering the football on time. And if not, it could get out of hand for those guys. And for AOC, I mean, you don't want to make mistakes, right? I mean, that's the reason that Gardner Minshew ends up on the bench. That's the reason why there's any deliberation in the first place as it pertains to the quarterback in Vegas. We know that this defense can play well and can keep you in some football games. All we have to do is not stub our toe offensively if we're the Raiders.
Yeah, I'll start with Rattler because he's easily the more intriguing one of the two to me. To me, Aiden O'Connell has done some nice things like in preseason, but I worry about his accuracy. I worry about his arm strength being to push the ball down the field consistently. Like, I just think he's maybe a little bit more limited of a guy in terms of his ceiling in that offense. But with Rattler, like, his tools are high-end NFL in terms of like his arm talent. And that was why you go back to his redshirt freshman year, going to his redshirt sophomore year at Oklahoma before he got benched for Caleb Williams. People were like, oh, is this guy a potential number 1 pick? You go back to the mock drafts preseason that year. Him and Sam Howell were kind of like neck and neck as who people thought could be that guy. Obviously fell off, obviously kind of had to reinvent himself at South Carolina. But this past year at South Carolina, he was a different guy in a number of ways. And I think the biggest one to me was how he could handle pressure. He didn't take as many sacks. He was much better at, standing in there tough because he had a terrible offensive line in South Carolina. So what he's dealing with here, we're going to have to deal with in New Orleans. Ain't nothing new to him with kind of how banged up they are in that interior. But the one thing I still had big question marks about was his ability to diagnose and take good chances down the football field. He has the arm to do it. He's accurate at that level. But a lot of times, whether it was like these, vertical concepts where two guys are playing off of each other against a safety, a lot of times he wasn't making either the right decision or was turning down times when he had guys open, when a safety went one way or the other and he had a guy wide open. He wasn't taking those chances. In this New Orleans Saints offense, with what we've seen so far, if you're turning down those chances for those big plays, the offense is going to go in tank. Like flat out, that's what you have to do. This is a big play offense with how it's set up. So that's what I need to see from him, is just let it rip in this first game here against Tampa Bay Bucs.
Yeah, play confidently. This is the reason why people want to see you play, Spencer Rattler. You've got God-given talent. You opened with that. The guy has talent. So for this Saints team, you need to show that you have talent coupled with confidence in making the right decisions. And to your point about, I like to listen to you about some of the scouting reports because I don't watch these guys in college. I'm not a huge college football head. I like to get introduced to these guys at the NFL level. But when you talk to me about his indecisions, his indecisiveness on the back end with the deeper throws, he better be decisive because this Saints offense is predicated on the offense moving in big chunks. So for Rattler, show off that arm a little bit. As a young player, I used to remind myself, F it. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, and if it's the quarterback's case, it's throwing an interception. But what's the best that can happen? And some really good things can happen in that Kubiak offense if you're decisive and you're confident with your throws. So I'm excited to see Rattler. I know New Orleans is as well.
Speaking of effing it, wanted to touch on this real quick before we get to the games. George Pickens, if you didn't see his
that was a great segue. That was nice.
If you didn't see his eye black, it said open effing always on his eye black. You can't find pictures of it because you'd have to go to the broadcast to see pictures of it because all the Harry was saying all the Getty images took them all down from him this past week because of that. And now he may be getting fined. So the bad nightmarish week for George Pickens where he has his snaps cut. He's not running routes on the football field. Well, now he may be getting fined for his antics. And this Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver, I don't know. He's going down a bad path, we'll just say.
Yeah, it's and I talked about this last year. We all love Mike Tomlin. We know that he's the consummate leader and head coach and tough and old school. But there's kind of this mismatch personality thing going on between the head coach and then the most talented guys on the roster. And it's polarizing when you look at a guy like TJ Watt on the defensive side of the ball, who seems to be a carbon copy of what Mike Tomlin wants to get done. He's doing all the team stuff. And then the most talented guy on the offensive side of the ball is and has been George Pickens. Am I wrong? And when you've got talent like that, people tend to follow those guys. Yeah. People tend to look at them as, whether they like it or not, they're the leaders. So for George Pickens, going out there, not going through your routes. We just went on the show last week and talked about when Jordan Addison came back to the Vikings, what it looked like when Justin Jefferson was at the point of attack, leading, blocking on the edge as a receiver. A star receiver, not just the most talented guy on his team, probably the most talented guy in the NFL. You see the impact that has on a football team. If the Pittsburgh Steelers can get George Pickens just to show up and do the bare minimum in terms of being a good teammate, I really feel like the Steelers team will come a long way. But until then, we're going to continue to see George Pickens doing immature things, doing things that are not exactly paired up with good football. And I think it's a shame that their most talented guy is probably their least well-behaved guy.
I think you hit on a really good concept there that often gets overlooked or undervalued in the draft process when we talk about these guys, or even like free agency, in that if you are a star like George Pickens is, and I go back to like people passing on Jalen Carter, people look up to you to set the tone regardless. It's just by definition, that's just human nature, that you're going to look towards the best player, the guy.
Lead from the front. That's how it goes.
That is like, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but like when you have talent, when you are good at something, people look to you for leadership. People look to you to set the tone. People follow your lead because, again, it's human nature to want to emulate the people you think are good at something. And so when your best player has behavioral problems in the locker room on the football field, that rubs off on your lesser players. Your lesser players aren't going to be motivated to work harder, do more, give more to the team when they see from the top, like you said, leading from the front, the guy who is your best player not doing that. So it is big. Like, and that's why people will not say, oh, why when guys have character concerns, it's not, oh, they're just falling down my board. It's no, I won't draft them all together, because even if they turn out to be good, the culture that said guy brings to the table, I worry about impacting the rest of this roster. So it's something that people always discuss again during the draft season. Why are you passing this guy? He's so talented. Well, sometimes no amount of talent is worth the headache that certain guys bring to a locker room. Not saying that's any of these guys that we're discussing, but it's just the view of NFL head coaches.
I'll give one anecdote about my experience with a guy who was pretty polarizing, a guy by the name of Brandon Marshall. And a lot of young guys nowadays know Brandon Marshall as a media personality, and he's done a really good job getting involved in that space. But when he was a football player, there were questions about which version of Brandon Marshall was going to show up to the facility. One thing you never had to question with Brandon Marshall was his effort. You were going to get maybe an angrier Brandon one day, maybe a Wednesday. Brandon shows up a little bit frustrated from, whatever's going on, but you're going to get ferocious effort and physicality from that guy. I feel like if Pickens, instead of getting checked out, was hyper checked in during these times of trials and tribulations, whatever's going on between his ears, it would not only help him as a person and a player, but his team would be so much more thankful for it than seeing his snaps get cut to a season low 59%. His effort even lower in terms of percentage. Pittsburgh cannot afford to have the leader of their offense, the most talented guy on their offense, George Pickens, be the least dependable guy on their offense.
100%. And I think that's, why Tomlin did it. He wanted to kind of test Pickens and see how he responded. And obviously his response was not the way you would ideally want to go.
Justin Waters in the chat says some guys just need their older brother to help them out, maybe like pulling them out of a fight during a game in St. Louis. Well, I don't know if George Pickens has any siblings that Mike Tomlin would sign, but maybe that is a smart angle of attack there, Justin.
All right, this Sunday, week 6 of the NFL on CBS has plenty of great matchups, including a big one in Baltimore, when rookie sensation Jayden Daniels and the Commanders go head-to-head with Lamar Jackson's Ravens. Now that's a CBS Sports Sunday. It all begins at noon Eastern with JB and the guys on NFL Today on CBS and streaming on Paramount+. All right, we got 14 games to hit. Don't go anywhere. Come back right after this.
It's a team almost too good to be true.
You guys ain't ready for us.
Kick your game day off right as the Tops team tackles all the biggest headlines around the league.
Who's got 2 thumbs and loves this next segment?
Sunday mornings on CBS Sports Network.
All right, before we get to the games, let's check in on our locks of the week from the week that was last week. Both had a solid showing, 2-1 on the week. Moving me up to 12-3 on the season, you to 7-8, coming back. Got to get above 500 this week, but I'm salty about the Aaron Jones one. Man had 29 yards in the first quarter and then goes out with an injury. Las Vegas, Denver, could not believe that one ended up hitting the over. Actually, I love
That's
that
unbelievable.
from you. But the other two, cash money. So there you have it. We'll get to our locks of the week at the end of this, but let's kick it off with the 49ers traveling to the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks 3.5-point home dogs. Disrespectful. The NFC West leading Seahawks getting points at home. 48.5 is the over-under. Some injuries to note. Talanoa Hufanga, safety for the 49ers, just went to IR. Victor Gross Matos on IR
got back.
for the 49ers. Yeah, I know. With the wrist injury, Hufanga, Gross Matos, a knee injury. Jake Moody, their kicker, to miss a month or so. So they signed Matthew Wright. 49ers spiraling a little at 2-3. Other side of the ball, though, Seahawks have some key injuries. Byron Murphy, Uchenna Nwosu, both out. Tariq Woolen, cornerback, out as well. That's going to be huge considering the 49ers receiving core that they have to go against. Tail of the tape says this. Given the head coach to the 49ers, quarterback to the Seahawks, receivers, I call it a wash. Maybe that's unfair to the 49ers, but I really like this Seahawks unit. Backfield, give me the Seahawks right now and Kenny Walker. O-line, give me the 49ers. D-line, I called it a wash. Linebackers, 49ers, and then secondary to the Seahawks, even without Tariq Woolen, in my opinion. But those are going to be big injuries on both sides of the football.
Got to make if I'm the 49ers, dude, and are you finished with your?
Go ahead.
Can I get my first thoughts on this? Because
yeah,
you have to be better in the red zone. I mean, you've got these issues offensively, and you've looked at the health of this football team since the beginning of the year, and it's been in question. You've had a big year out of Jordan Mason. I need Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers to make the most of their possessions, to drain that time on the clock. And when you do get to the red zone, you have to score touchdowns. There's no field goals. You have to score touchdowns. I know you brought in Matthew Wright because your kicker's hurt, but I don't even want to see the kickers. I want to see you score touchdowns. I want to see you take the lead early on this Seahawks team. And on the other side of the ball, I want to see Kenneth Walker get more involved for the Seahawks. I need to see more touches out of him. I know he's catching the football well for Geno Smith, but this guy needs to have 25 touches. I'm talking between the passing game and the running game. I can't wait for this. DK Metcalf, Charvarius Ward, going to be a fun matchup. Obviously, Brock Purdy's still battling after a tough week last week, but it's going to be Geno Smith. It's going to be Geno Smith throwing the ball all over the yard, and it's going to be interesting. I like the Niners in this one a lot, but at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan and this offense have me concerned with the way they're not able to score the football in the low red area.
I actually like the Seahawks in this one. Maybe not to win outright, but 3.5 is a lot at home because, I go back to last week and the Giants, and I just thought that Giants D-line really hit where the Seahawks were the weakest, right? I thought like the matchup specifically is what worried me. And then you saw that play out with Seahawks not able to move the football. I think that changes with this 49ers team. I think they'll specifically be able to run the football. I think Kenny Walker, anytime touchdown, over 66 rushing yards in this game, like hit them all. I think he's going to go off. You had Ryan Grubbs apologizing last week for how few touches he gave to Kenny Walker. Like he's going to right that ship. And I think when you watch, again, this 49ers front seven, I keep talking about, they are just soft against the run right now. You can move the ball on the ground on this team. So I think that's where the Seahawks can control this. I like them. I kind of like the under 48.5 points. I like it to be a tighter, low-scoring game. And I think the Seahawks, they come out on top in this one.
What did you make of Nick Bosa's comments this past week as it pertained to the defense being prepared? He's like, I don't have an issue with the preparation. I have the issue with the adjustments defensively. What has stood out to you in terms of why they've struggled as a defense?
Yeah, I mean, there are no adjustments, right? They kind of run what they run. And when, when things aren't working in the running game specifically, like you have to do more in that regard, on stopping the run. They have to do more in that regard because I think they have the corners on the outside, maybe not necessarily in this game, but I think especially last week, they had the corners to, hold up against those wide receivers to the Arizona Cardinals, but it just didn't really matter because they were just getting the ball ran down their throat. So yeah, I will say the 49ers, like they're not doing different stuff, and what they're doing right now isn't working. Like they've been this sort of, single high cover 3 defense for like the whole Shanahan era, and we'll see if they make any adjustments in that regard. But yeah, this is good. This is a really good Thursday night football game, but it's really big for the 49ers right now, considering 2-3 division rival on the road. You lose this, drop to 2-4.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks go to 4-2, put yourself that big of a hole to try to overcome. I think they lose this game. I think you have to be at best with the 49ers this season road playoff game. Unfortunately, I think they're a wild card team. If
this is the way that you break the wheel, Game of Thrones style. This is Khaleesi. This is how you take out the reigning champs in this division. You got to get after them when you can at home. And my concern is the way that the Seahawks didn't defend the run last week. I mean, you take a look at Tyrone Tracy had 129 yards against this football team. I think Jordan Mason could go for $160 if they commit to it. I mean, I really feel like if you want to solve your issues as a football team and you find yourselves in a rut, it's almost like in golf. The other day, I got the yips around the green, but you know what? I just stuck to what I could do, which is get off the tee box, get down the fairway as far as I can. And the way that the San Francisco 49ers team can get themselves back in balance is to run the football. I think limiting the possessions for Geno Smith and beating up that front seven of the Seahawks will be the easiest way to get this done.
All right, we shall see. On to the London game. Your boys, Jags, traveling across to their, not technically the home team here, but where they've played a ton of games over the years. Chicago
it's their
Bears.
Second home. It's their vacation home, we'll call it.
There you go. Bears 1.5 point favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under in this one. Tyson Campbell may be back this week, designated for return from IR, back at practice on Wednesday. Jaquan Brisker, though, for the Bears, not going to be playing with a concussion. Tail of the tape says this. I didn't give the head coach advantage to anyone at this point. Quarterback advantage goes Jaguars, receivers heavily to the Bears. Backfield, O-line, D-line, give me Jaguars on all three of those, but then the back end of the defense is quite easily the Chicago Bears at this point. So I don't have a great handle one way or the other. Like if Trevor Lawrence plays the way he did last week, it's a game, right? If he plays the way he did,
he's not going to play that way. He's not going to play
not
that way. You know that.
But my biggest take from this game is I think everyone forgot how both these offenses looked the first 4 weeks and is only focusing on the fact that they put up 37 and 36 points last week, because 44 and a half points is a ton for how the Bears defense has been playing and how just like in the games the Jags have played kind of all season, which have been these low scoring affairs. So my favorite bet in this one's the under. Who's going to win? I don't have a great take on. I'd probably lean Bears at this point, but those foreign games, I feel like under is where I'm leaning. I don't foresee too many points being put up.
I think the story of the game or the tail of the tape, as it were, the reason for the season is going to be the Bears' ability to stop those two running backs. I think with all the great coverage on the back end and all the threats that the Bears secondary presents to a guy like Trevor Lawrence, he knows that his best friends are going to be ETN and Bigsby. Big weeks last week from those guys. But like you said, it's not – people are looking at last week's stats from Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence and thinking that this is going to be some sort of shootout. I really think that with the Bears defense and that rush, honestly, from the Jags, you're going to be looking at two teams that are going to be coming down to earth a little bit in terms of offense. You like the under. I like that as well. Give me the Bears in this one. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet to be heavily involved in this game because that ball is going to be out quick. And, Caleb is going to be on the same page with Swift, at least I hope, for those checkdowns and look for Kmet over the middle of the football field. He's been really good for them lately.
Bears defense hasn't had quite the teeth this year, though, against the run at least. They've been an elite cover unit in terms of just like one-on-one. Can they match up with other wide receivers and whatnot? But against the run, 4.8 per carry, over 600 yards already, well over 100 yards per game allowing on the ground. So if the Jags have a place where they can do it, it's on the ground. But that only makes me feel better about the under in this one if it's going to be a ground and pound sort of affair there in London. You guys think who's going to win?
I'm taking Chicago.
Of course,
part of me wants to say the over, but it's going to be the under. After this conversation we just had, I think it's going to be under. I'm making a change right now. Bears under. I think that with the way Trevor Lawrence wasn't pressured last week, it lulls you into this sense of security. And against this front and with this blitzing secondary and second level of the defense, Eberflus is going to try to get after Trevor Lawrence. He's going to try to get Trevor Lawrence to give the Bears a few freebies, create some extra possessions for this offense and this young quarterback. I'm all in on the Bears. Now I'm all in on the Bears.
You just gave yourself like point after point. Just hit it.
Let's go.
And then you just commit yourself. All right, Commanders traveling to Baltimore to face the Ravens in the 1 p.m. slate.
This is
what a game.
Come on.
Now, there's not a lot of places where the Commanders have a clear edge, I'll just say. Head coach, receivers, backfield, O-line, D-line, secondary, I have all going the Ravens' way. I have the Commanders getting the linebacker tick mark. But I'll just say, O-line, this is close. Quarterback, with the way they're both playing right now, I can't decide between the two. So those are some positions that are heavily going to impact this football game. And when you just look at how both have played this year, Commanders, 3.37 points per drive, tops in the NFL by far. Only team over 3 points per drive this season. Ravens, though, they're fourth in the NFL and 2.63 points per drive. So 51.5 points is the over-under in this one. Ravens are 6.5 point favorites, though. To me, that's just too much, man. You got to give the Commanders some credit at this point. They're going to put up points on anyone they play with Jayden Daniels back there at quarterback. I like the Commanders to cover.
You like the Commanders, and I kind of love the Ravens in this one. And because of the fact that the Ravens are so dominant against the run game, you're going to see a one-dimensional offense. Cliff Kingsbury is going to force Jayden Daniels to go back there and throw against a unit that has struggled against the pass this year relative to how the Ravens have been historically. I think this could be the most fun game of the season, honestly. This is going to be the game where both offenses get to go out there strength against strength. I mean, part of me wants to see Lamar shoot it out with Jayden Daniels. Part of me wants to see the Ravens stick to the run, limit those possessions for the Commanders. We know that they can score at will in Washington. But if I'm the DC in Baltimore, I want to make this team one-dimensional. I want Jayden Daniels to beat me. I mean, we know he's great. We know he's accurate, but a lot of that stuff happens as a result of this offensive line getting guys blocked up in the run game, and you have to respect those two running backs who have played above expectation. Also, this defense, the defense, they give up a lot of points, but I honestly think they're playing better than they are on paper. I think they've played tough all year. They've given this team a chance to win. I think this week they will be tested like they haven't been tested before against Lamar Jackson in this offense. I think there's so much that they present from the tight end room with Andrews and Likely, and now Cole are running down the field open. You've got Derrick Henry, and then obviously Zay Flowers, the volume in which they can get him the football. It presents a lot of issues for that defense. Give me the Ravens in this one at home.
The Commanders, I will say, 28th right now in points per drive against. This one there's 30. I like the over at 51.5, truthfully. I think there's a great chance this one shoots up to what we saw from the Ravens last week, because I think the Commanders on the outside, I love Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown against these Ravens corners on the go balls. I think he hits at least a couple in this one, and those are field flipping sort of plays that will keep the Commanders in this game. I don't have a take on who's going to win, but I just think 6.5 is crazy to me with how well this Commanders offense is moving the football. So I do, though. My favorite bet is the over in that game. All right, on to the Bucks.
I love the Ravens.
Saints.
They're definitely going to win the first half.
Saints, 3.5-point dogs at home. 41.5 points is the over-under here. And it's because, well, rookie quarterback starting there. So the tail of the tape says head coach, quarterback, receivers all going the Bucs way. Backfield going the Saints way, even if Alvin Kamara a little banged up himself. A lot of injuries on this Saints team so far. And the Bucs get back Luke Gedeke to their right tackle at practice after his concussion. So O-line at full strength for the Tampa Bay Bucs. D-line hopefully at full strength too, even if it's not. That Bucs D-line gets the tick mark, but then linebackers secondary going the Saints way. I don't know, man. I just don't think Spencer Rattler in his very first career NFL start is going to move the ball against this Bucs defense. I just don't. I just flat out don't. So I like the Bucs big, and I like the under actually in this one because I think it's something like a 24-6, 24-10 sort of game when it's all said.
Okay. I love the Bucs in this one. Saints on a short week, and I just think the Bucs are a better football team, particularly when your starting quarterback is out. I mean, you've got a rookie in there in Spencer Rattler, and it remains to be seen whether or not he can propel this team to where they want to go. It may take some time. It may take some weeks. We don't know how long Derek's going to be out. So this is a get your feet wet game for him. Unfortunately, it is in the division. Fortunately for them, they are at home, but it's a short week, and I like the Bucs in this one. I think Liam Cohen and Baker Mayfield have been awesome, and it's going to be business as usual for this Bucs offense.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not much to like about the Saints if Derek Carr is out, unfortunately. And with all the injuries they have on their offensive line.
This comes down to vibes. How much of a change does Spencer Rattler being in there change the vibe of this offense? So, do they get a real boost from having this young guy in? And I'm talking before the play even starts, When we're on the sideline and they're in the TV timeout, we get our offense together and everybody's, tapping helmets and getting ready. What's the vibe there? That's what I want to see. I want to see how Spencer Rattler operates before the series, during the series, and after the series, making adjustments. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And this is a guy that we were kind of banging on the table for at the beginning of the year. We wanted to see some Spencer Rattler. So we see it this week, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be enough. Give me the Bucs.
Antoine Winfield may play this week. He was a limited participant for the first time this week on Wednesday. So if he plays, well, good luck, Spencer. All right, on to the Browns. Traveling to Philadelphia to face the Eagles, one of the biggest lines of the week. I think it may be the biggest. 8.5 points. The Eagles are favored by, how the Browns have fallen. They get A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith back this week. 42.5 points is the over-under in that one. Tail of the tape says, well, the Eagles offense, they get all the tick marks, and the Browns defense get all the tick marks. Browns get the head coaching tick mark, but truthfully at this point, I don't know if that's the case anymore.
It's been
Neither of these
soured.
coaching staff have been putting out their best foot forward this season. So, I mean, just not a lot of reasons to pump the Browns tires. They just, if you can say maybe they cover 8.5 because it's a big line, but there's nothing you can point me to that makes me feel good about them winning this football game.
There are 3 names that matter in this football game: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Lane Johnson. Those are the only names that matter when you're talking about the I don't want to hear about Deshaun Watson anymore. I don't want to hear about Kevin Stefanski's coaches of the years. I think that when you look at the guys that are back in the lineup for the Eagles, it just makes too much sense. Don't overthink this thing. They are in Philadelphia. They have their Hall of Fame right tackle back, and they've got their 2 Pro Bowl level receivers back. Don't panic. Jalen Hurts will have less pressure in his lap because of the changes at the offensive line. They're getting healthy. I think the Eagles are going to be pretty darn good in this one.
Yeah, 8.5 to me is like too big because I think it could be low scoring. But when you look at this Browns offensive line still, it's like they're not going to score. They're not going to move the football. They're dealing with a bunch of injuries defensively themselves. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit all may not be playing in this one. So, sorry, Cleveland. It ain't your year. It ain't your year. Jameis time.
I mean, they had their opportunity last week to try to right the ship against the Commanders, and they did, and they pissed down their leg, and they got embarrassed by the Commanders. So I think, unfortunately, put a fork in these guys as it currently stands until they make changes at the quarterback position.
On to the Colts, traveling to Tennessee to face the Titans. Titans 1.5-point dogs at home. 43.5 points is the over-under. Still no word on who will be starting for the Colts. Anthony Richardson limited at practice this week. Jonathan Taylor not practicing this week. That being said, give me head coach, quarterback, receivers all going the Colts' way. Backfield with no Jay Taylor quite easily goes to the Titans then. Offensive line, the Colts' way, but then the defense, all 3 tick marks going to the Titans. D-line, linebacker, secondary. Man, I really like the Colts if Anthony Richardson doesn't play. I love the Colts in the over in this one. I just think you saw it last week, 34 points against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They can move the football through the air. They have a stacked receiving core. And I love what Shane Steichen's doing offensively. They're going to be able to move the ball against this Titans team. I don't know if the same can be said for Tennessee. Will Levis still TBD on if he's going to play also. I don't think that really matters or moves the needle to me much.
So we don't know who's playing quarterback for either of these teams.
But it's wild to me that we're saying hey, or at least I'm saying, if Anthony Richardson doesn't play, I like the Colts. If the starter doesn't play,
I like the Colts if Joe Flacco's playing. You're right. Yeah. I mean, it's as simple as that. Anthony Richardson hasn't done enough to prove to me that he's a winning quarterback at this point in his career. He hasn't been healthy for any of it. I would feel way more comfortable going the Colts' way if we were talking Joe Flacco. If Anthony Richardson is in the game, I have some concerns. This Titans defense is really good. They get Jeffrey Simmons back. I think that Jeffrey Simmons poses a lot of threats to a quarterback, particularly a quarterback that likes to move. And I mean, Jeffrey Simmons isn't a guy that you can just break contain on either. He's going to be chasing Anthony Richardson all over. And I think if it is Joe Flacco, we're going to see a great protection plan to get that defensive line shored up because Flacco's going to be dropping back to pass. Another great positive about Joe, the ball's out. There's nothing that you can do. There is no mental hurdle high enough to keep Joe Flacco out. So I like Flacco and the Colts if that's the case. And if it's Levis against Richardson, give me the Titans.
I think I still like Richardson, though. I think the Colts are the better team right now. Either way, however you want to splice it up. But we shall see. All right. We're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to Texans at Patriots.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount Plus. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
All right. Texans traveling to New England, face the Patriots, and it's Drake May's career opener. Tail of the tape says a lot of these tick marks go on the Texans' way. Head coach, QB, receivers, O-line, D-line. Those are all probably where you want the tick marks to be going your way. But linebacker, secondary, backfield, all go to the Patriots. A few things to note here. Obviously, Drake May, first career start. He is going against the highest pressure percentage defense in the NFL. Patriots, obviously, the lowest, have been allowing the highest pressure rate of any team in the NFL. So not a good combo first start. On the Texans side, I said Bobby Slowick's got to start just letting CJ Stroud have it, put some numbers to it this week. Their first down run rate is far and away the highest of any team in the NFL. 71.57% of their first down snaps have been runs. So let CJ cook. I don't think they're going to move the ball on the ground. Joe Mixon's still out, but some good news for Drake May. Jimmy Ward, Kamari Lassiter, safety and cornerback for the Texans, respectively, didn't practice Wednesday, may not play this weekend. So a silver lining if you're a Patriots fan, that Drake may have some opportunities down the field.
Yeah, and Drake May is one of these guys that's physically gifted, and we talked about it on PTP the other day with Leger. If you're going to put a rookie quarterback out there against a group that's going to pressure, you want a guy with some physical gifts, the ability to move. Check. Drake May can move. He can get outside the pocket. He can make those creative plays when the play breaks down with his legs. You want a guy that's big and strong. Check. Drake May's got that, right? We can all agree that he can move and he's a big, strong guy. So then I start thinking about the archetype of a big, strong guy that can move. It's a Josh Allen type. What happens when Josh Allen gets pressured? He makes teams pay. He makes teams pay for it when they bring second-level blitzers because he can ward off those defenders. He can make his way out to find a new launch point for the pass. And for a guy like Drake May, he's going to cut it loose. It's not like the Patriots are playing for the Super Bowl. He's playing to show people that he knows how to play football, and he's a dynamic threat with the football in his hand. So I'm looking forward to that. I think we're going to see this offense start to morph into one that gets to the edges. I talked about him being able to move. He moves a lot better than Jacoby Brissett. So we know that this coordinator is going to get Drake May on the edge, throwing the football. We know the Patriots can run it a little bit, so that'll help Drake feel more comfortable. He won't be just standing in there under pressure going through his progressions. It'll be simple half-field reads. In my opinion, that's what I think we're going to see from this offense. And then on the other side of the ball, CJ Stroud without Nico Collins, it's a little bit concerning. And we know that there's been some injuries in the backfield for the Texans, and their offense has kind of been one-dimensional with getting the ball over there, that ex-receiver and Nico Collins. Well, he's on IR now, so we're going to find out who's ready to step up. You talked about Tank Dell's health or lack thereof yesterday on the show. Interesting to see if he's able to have some explosion in his game against the Patriots. And then are they able to get that running game moving? That's the question, because it's CJ Stroud averages 7.8 yards per pass attempt when he's going to Nico Collins and everybody else, but 6.2 when he's targeting anyone other than Nico Collins. So the offense is less explosive. We don't really know what their identity is without Nico Collins. I'm excited to see a game plan built around an offense without that stud in there at the number one.
Yeah, and I think they're going to miss, specifically in this game, his size. You know, what he could do at almost 6'5" in just contested situations of, hey, like no one's open, let me give Nico a chance. They don't have that guy now. You know, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, your top two wide receivers are not catch point sort of guys. And Xavier Hutchinson, who should be, who at least was last week, the guy who filled in, is just, he ain't Nico Collins. He's a bigger wide receiver, but just he ain't Nico Collins. He's not doing the same sort of thing. So that's going to be big. That's why I think my favorite bet in this one, or one of my favorites, is the under 38.5 points. It's still a rookie quarterback in his very first game against a really good pressure unit up front and all they can bring at you. So I think obviously the Texans win this one. I'd be very surprised if they lose. 7 points is a lot, but I'd probably lean their side, and I'd lean under as well.
I think it could be fun. I think I'm going to take the Patriots in this one.
I think straight up? Or just
I need 7. I'm going to need those 7, buddy. Okay, give me those 7. Give me the Patriots, home dogs. I kind of like it. Drake May coming out party. You know, does our tune change as it pertains to the pecking order of rookie quarterbacks? Does Drake May have it in him to go beat CJ Stroud in his first week? It'll be interesting. I'm a romantic though, so don't take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I'm excited to see Drake May. I hate that he's playing. I wish they waited till next year. But if they rip the Band-Aid off, so be it. Let's get this thing figured out.
All right, Cardinals traveling to the Packers, last of the 1 p.m. slate here. Packers 5.5-point favorites at home. 47.5 points is the over-under. And as you see there, every single tick mark except for linebackers, which I call the wash, going the Packers' way. They're just the more talented side. And if there's any game for Jordan Love to kind of get right and look like the Jordan Love we saw down the stretch last year, it is this game against the Arizona Cardinals, one of the most porous defenses in the NFL so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be another opportunity for Jordan Love to prove to the world that he is a top-tier quarterback. We've had our doubts in some of these plays that he's gone out there, sails the football, doesn't look to be completely healthy. But at the end of the day, you and I know he's coming off of something. He's figuring out where he is. I think the real question is that Green Bay defense, because we know Kyler Murray presents so many issues. And with Trey McBride back in the lineup, the offense looks complete again, and this Cardinals team's frisky, man. And when you got one of these dual threat quarterbacks, a do-it-all guy with a big arm and the ability to break a home run at any given time with his legs, it presents a lot of issues. And you and I talked about the lack of pass rush for the Green Bay Packers, and then maybe they should move around some of their guys, bring Van Ness inside, something like that, try to provide a spark. Well, my only issue with that is when you move these guys inside, then they lose their spatial awareness. Then next thing you know, Kyler Murray is broken contained. So if I'm Halfley, I want to go gap control, lane control, defense, contain rushes from these guys. If you don't think you can win every rep, let's just drop everybody into coverage and have our 4 guys contain Kyler Murray, and we can plaster him at the second level when he does break the line of scrimmage. Outside of that, I don't know a really good game plan against Kyler Murray. You're going to have to play dynamite defense on the back end if you're the Green Bay Packers, because Kyler can keep those plays alive. And to your point, they don't get home with their rushes, so Kyler will have an opportunity to run it or throw it.
I will say, though, with kind of those Packers edge guys, and now they're not the most fleet of foot. I get Van Ness can track down mobile QBs, but they do at least compress a pocket. They are the type of rushers that aren't going to go high side. They aren't going to go underneath. They are trying to just
down the middle,
have the walls cave in on opposing quarterbacks, and they're fairly good at it. And I especially think Rashawn Gary, if he's going to show the F up this season, this is the game it happens. And I think he himself has a big one. But I think the biggest matchup to me is the other side of the ball. It's Packers offensive line this year. Highest graded pass blocking unit in the NFL, going against the Cardinals' non-existent pass rush. 4th lowest pass rushing grade according to PFF this season. So
it's going to be a 7-on-7 game.
Yes, it's just he will have time. And when you kind of go into a game like Matt LaFleur, knowing you'll have time, knowing you're going to win that matchup, that's when you can dial up those big, deep crossers, the cross-country stuff that really takes 3 to 4 seconds in the pocket to develop, but he'll have it in this one.
And Jordan Love with time, scary. I like the Packers in this one, although it's frisky. I've said it's frisky a couple times. I like the Packers in this one at home. For those of you who have never played or been to Lambeau Field, especially in like a 1 p.m. slot, this place, it's like football heaven there at Lambeau. They're going to be having a blast. And with Jordan Love throwing the football all around, they're probably going to be saying, I just want to bang on your drum all day. I hate that song. It's going to be played a lot. It's going to be played a lot.
You know what song I hate? So I love that song. First off,
Bear Down Chicago Bears.
No, I was going to say Chelsea's Dagger, which is who's the hockey team in Chicago? The Blackhawks.
Oh, the Blackhawks.
Dagger after goals. But the Cardinals also play it after they score touchdowns. The and when I was there, I went to the divisional round game, Kurt Warner versus Aaron Rodgers back in 2009, when it was the OT loss, Aaron Rodgers fumble 6th. And to hear that song 7 times, because I think they scored 7 touchdowns in that game, the Cardinals did, that made me hate that song. But Bang the Drums is great. Bang the Drums elite.
It's a good song.
Roger Rodenberg. Yeah.
It's a good song.
4 p.m. slate. Chargers traveling to Denver, face the Broncos. Broncos 3.5-point dogs at home. 35.5 points is the over-under. I believe that ties the lowest of the
Mike,
season.
I'm going to pee while you do this. I'm sorry. I drank way too much coffee. I'll be right back.
You're good. All right, go through the tail of tape real quick here. Head coach calling it a wash. Sean Payton versus Jim Harbaugh, 2 of the best in the NFL, and especially what both DCs for these respective coaches are doing. Quarterback, have to go the Chargers' way. Receivers, I'm not giving it to anyone. None of these receiving cores look any sort of good this season. Backfield, give me the Broncos and Javonte Williams, how he looks right now. O-line, though, Chargers, but injuries of note, Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, still TBD on if they will play. Obviously, if those guys don't go, that's a nightmare scenario against this Broncos front, because the Broncos get the D-line check mark, Chargers get the linebacker check mark, and the secondary going the Broncos way, quite obviously, for my money, one of, if not the best secondary in the NFL this season. So all that adds up to the number 1 and the number 2 defenses in terms of points per drive this season facing off. But the 27th and 29th best offenses in terms of points per drive. Scoring's at a minimum, at a premium here, and I'm going to go Broncos in that route because I think I'm worried about these Chargers tackles not playing, and I'm worried about just the Chargers' ability to move the football flat out. These wide receivers can't get open against these Broncos corners. They're just not going to. I don't know what Justin Herbert's going to be able to do and what you can scheme up offensively besides pound the rock, and that hasn't been necessarily a winning strategy against the Broncos this season.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of the Chargers receivers running off these DBs, these corners, or, trying to go for these 9 routes, get their backs turned, and we're going to see a lot of running the ball. And I think it's a great point you make about Justin Herbert. Where's he going to go with the football? Well, I think Jim Harbaugh knows that better than anybody. I think they're going to try to incorporate some of this quarterback run game. I think depending on how well Justin Herbert feels, unfortunately, they're going to pound the rock, and they're going to do it with him as a big part of it, in my opinion. And that will force the Broncos' hand, thus opening up some stuff on the back end. But still, it's the cornerbacks. It's not like safeties coming into the box. These are the corners that are coverage guys. So regardless of what you do from a respect standpoint on the defense, you're going to still have those corners in the same spot. It's still going to be that lack of a matchup for the Chargers. I like the Broncos a lot. They're hot. They seem like they're a really well-coached football team. Bo Nix is on the rise. He's not on an astral ascent, but I would say he's in low Earth orbit right now. If Jayden Daniels is on the moon, Bo Nix is in low Earth orbit, and Caleb is breaking through the atmosphere just above him. So I like the Broncos a lot. I said I like the coaching staff. Also, this is a home game, division game. It's an opportunity for the Broncos to show this Chargers team who's boss, and it's 2 new coaches, 2 teams that are forming their identities, and we've thrown the past out. 2 groups that are trying to get on to new stuff. And this is an opportunity to invite to introduce yourself in division to a rival. Give me the Broncos. I don't think there's a prettier place to play, a better weather place to play than Denver, particularly at this point in the season.
Yeah,
and you can't breathe. You can't breathe in Denver, bro. When you're in the pregame warmups and you're like, fuck, this is real. Like, I can't breathe at all. Excuse my language. I'm at home, so I think I'm on my Twitch stream. We're on the podcast. I can't even breathe. You're trying to get through your O-line warm-up. And even more so with the way that the Chargers are going to run the football, these guys are going to be straining every play. It's tough to sustain that for 4 quarters, particularly in a place like Denver.
Yeah, I like Denver a lot, and I like, as much as Vegas already kind of caked it, I like the under 35.5 points. I really think this ends up 13-10. I just can't see this one getting a lot too much higher than that. These offenses and defenses, or these offenses just overmatched by the respective defenses. All right, on to the Steelers, traveling to the Raiders. Raiders 3.5-point dogs at home. Another super low number, 36.5 is the over-under. Some big injuries to note. Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig out. So that right edge rushing duo for the Pittsburgh Steelers won't be there.
Yikes.
Las Vegas Raiders, though, Christian Wilkins went on IR this week, out for the season. Their $100 million man. A brutal blow to the interior of that Raiders defense. Tick marks, everything besides receivers and offensive line going the Steelers' way. They're the better side right now. It's just, what did they do? It's honestly just George Pickens at this point is the thing for me. If he's not out there, I'm not sure I love them, because they're just going to have a tough time putting up points. Flat out. It's with that receiving core with Justin Fields, you're going to have to run the ball effectively, and your offensive line's way too beat up to do that, even if Christian Wilkins ain't walking through that door. But on the other side, Aiden O'Connell, first start, it's like, dude, good luck, buddy. This ain't the defense you want your first career start against. So I think I like Steelers in this one, just because I don't see the Raiders being able to move the ball too much.
I like the Steelers as well, and I look at Justin Fields, and I think it can't get any worse than what we saw last time with like a 50% completion percentage, and all the balls were at or around the line of scrimmage. And back to the George Pickens thing. If I'm in charge of where George Pickens lines up or his doings, I'm going to match him up with the biggest shit talker on the Raiders team. And I want to get him pissed off in the first drive. I want to piss George Pickens off because I feel like if that's what it takes to get him emotionally invested into a football game, I'll do it. I'll give him the opportunity to crack guys in the run game. I'll give him the opportunity to lead block maybe on a jet sweep. Make him understand and feel that he's in a football game because that's how you get an alpha to respond. I'm not quite sure George Pickens is an alpha, but physically he is. And if you could turn him into a mental alpha with some, just some shit, put some shit on his plate from the beginning of the game, you could see George Pickens play with a little gusto. That offense might come around. And to your point, AOC playing against the Steelers defense, it's just going to be too much. They fly around. They take the football away. So not only are interceptions going to be in the cards for this Raiders team, but it's the sack fumbles. It's the, getting guys on the ground, but going for the football before you get them on the ground. Give me the Steelers in this one.
I love that take. Very first play, I want pin and pull to the right, George Pickens crack blocking Max Crosby.
I want Max Crosby in George Pickens' face. It's going to happen. And then from that, we have ignition, baby. We get George Pickens. I think it could be a lot of fun.
That's a great call out. We need to see it. But if it is, I mean, like I like the Steelers, I think either way. But if George Pickens, if you get up George Pickens, they should roll the Raiders in this one.
Buddy, like I told you about Brandon Marshall. If we could get Brandon Marshall pissed off about something back in the day, Jay, I'd be like, what are we thinking here for the next series? And he'd look at me like, we're just gonna throw it to Brandon, bro. We're just gonna throw it to Brandon at the line of scrimmage. He's gonna stiff arm a guy into the earth and run it for 9 to 15 yards. And that's our offense. And when they start to respect that, we're gonna hand it to Matt Forte. I think that's what the Steelers need to get into.
All right, Falcons traveling to Carolina to face the Panthers. An NFC West showdown. Panthers 6.5-point dogs.
Blowdown.
The worst tail of the tape you'll see all season. Every single tick mark going the Falcons' way. Panthers are just underpowered, and unfortunately, going to be even more so because Taylor Mouton going to miss his first career game. Man's made 120 starts in a row to start his career off. Right tackle for the Carolina Panthers. Unfortunately, going to be out a few weeks. So that streak comes to
120 starts?
120 starts to start his career.
I take my cap off to you, sir. That's one of the most impressive things that you can get done in the National Football League. I played with some guys that got to 100, and it's like they're Iron Men. I don't think you understand how hard it is week in, week out as an NFL player, particularly a guy at the line of scrimmage, to go out and do this. So 120 starts, that's a massive deal. What you guys see on Sundays, Thursdays, and Mondays from these football players, keep in mind we do it every single day of the week. And when you're a leader in your room, you're expected to do it without bitching. You're expected to do it without a drop in quality of play. So I'm going to give a big shout out to our guy Mouton. 120 starts, bro. Big respect.
I like the Falcons in this one, 6.5-point dogs. I'll do it even with the points. I just think flat out, if you can tell me Kirk Cousins is going to have time, I will tell you he will carve up your defense. That's just how it's been this year for Atlanta. He's playing the past few weeks some darn good football yet again. And he has the receivers to get it done. Like he has guys that are getting open. So all that being said, I think the Falcons pour it on. I think they end up with a number somewhere starting with a 3 when it's all said and done. I think they win this one going away.
What does adjusted O-line yards mean?
Oh, dude, is that like one of those yards before contact? Is that what it is?
I guess that would be an O-line stat. How clean you keep them before contact in a running play. Because I'm reading an article here by a gentleman named Jacob Wayne, who is talking about how the Panthers ranked second in that stat, which is impressive. That's really the only.
They've moved the ball on the ground this year. They have the running game.
Chuba Hubbard is probably going to be asked to do some stuff until Kirk Cousins gets halfway to 500, and then they're going to throw the football for the Panthers.
Yeah, if I had to lean, I'd probably lean over 46.5, but I think the best bet in this one, or my favorite one, is just Falcons.
Best bet is just Falcons. Yep.
Yeah. All right, on to the Lions, traveling to the Dallas Cowboys. In the last game of the 4 p.m. slate here, Cowboys home dogs, 3 points, 52.5 points is the over-under in this one. Expecting fireworks. Micah Parsons still not practicing. Deron Bland, cornerback for the Cowboys. IR window is opening this week. TBD on whether he's likely to play because they'll need him in this one, because if you look at the tail of the tape, only tick mark the Cowboys get is the quarterback position, linebackers and secondary. I called washes, but the O-line, D-line talent is where this game is just lopsided, in my opinion. Lions trenches right now. That's why they're so good. That's why they're such a tough out week in, week out. You're just going to have to overcome being overmatched in both those regards, in my opinion, for the Dallas Cowboys. And while Dak Prescott, I think, is playing quarterback at a high level, it's going to be almost impossible to overcome, I think, that offensive line. And especially when it's not just going to be Aiden Hutchinson, right? I think Aiden Hutchinson, he lines up on the left. He's going to go against Terrence Steele. He's going to win that matchup, but they'll move him. If they think that they can get him against Tyler Guyton consistently, they'll do that. And that's a nightmare matchup if you're the Dallas Cowboys, because Aiden Hutchinson is just living in the backfield right now, no matter who he plays. So I think that's the one where I'm like, they don't have a tackle that can block Aiden right now. And they'll do a good job of getting him to avoid chips and whatnot by moving him around enough to where he could take over this game and the Cowboys offense could do not a whole lot.
I think it's definitely going to come down to how they will treat and respect Aiden Hutchinson in that pass game, because we know that he's an engine that doesn't stop. I mean, if George Pickens played as hard and as often as Aiden Hutchinson, the Steelers might be undefeated. Well, for Aiden Hutchinson, he's going to be the guy that can end this thing for the Cowboys, because we know who the Lions are. We know they're going to stay on schedule offensively. They're going to run the football. They're going to use the play action game effectively. Jared Goff's going to be efficient. He is playing indoors again this week at the Cowboys Stadium. So I expect Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb to have to play that track meet style offense where it's Dak trying to find CeeDee, and teams have done so much to take CeeDee Lamb away from Dak Prescott, particularly in the second half of these games. We know where Dak wants to go. We know that CeeDee is more than likely going to be open. Somewhere in that cat and mouse game is going to be Aiden Hutchinson, making him pay in the backfield, getting after Dak Prescott. Who knows? Maybe forcing an early throw, a tip ball. I'm looking for Aiden Hutchinson to be the X factor. Give me the Lions in this one. I love the Lions on Sunday.
I am very curious to see how the Lions, though, do match up with this Cowboys receiving core, if they do go out and play as much man and as much press as they have in the past, just because, I mean, I don't think there's too many guys you have to worry about outside of CeeDee. I know Brandon Cooks, Jalen Colbert, whatever, but I think they have the guys that match up well outside of who's going to press CeeDee, whether it's Carlton Davis, who knows. But I do think ultimately, I'm not sure it matters because the pass rush is going to get home. Flat out, I think Dak's going to be under heavy fire in this game. So
Jarius Norwood is in the chat saying, just saying, if it does become a shootout, Goff ain't it. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, Jarius. First off, thanks for being here. Good to see you. Glad you survived the hurricane. I think it's not going to be a shootout. I think they're going to beat the dog out of the Cowboys up front. It's going to be what we saw against the Seahawks, which was just on time, in rhythm offense. There's no secret about what we're trying to do. You saw those drives where it was run, pass, run, touchdown. That's going to be what we're going to see against this Cowboys team, who is ailing defensively in terms of health and performance. And Dan Campbell has this team exactly where he wants them. And I think he relishes the opportunity to go to Jerry's world and to beat the crap out of this Cowboys football team.
All right, on to Sunday Night Football. Bengals, Giants. Giants, 3.5-point dogs at home. 48.5 points is the over-under. For the Bengals, maybe getting some reinforcement. Sheldon Rankins back at practice this week, the DT, because, boy, will they need it. I had a lot of ties in this tale of the tape, whether it was head coach, whether it was backfield, whether it was offensive line, linebacker, secondary. They're kind of evenly matched teams except for one big outlier. Two big outliers, excuse me. Quarterback and D-line. Now, receivers, Giants, like Malik Neighbors is playing, which I believe he will be. They're not that far off. Obviously, I give the Bengals tick mark here, but DJ versus Joe Burrow and then this Giants D-line versus this Bengals D-line are night and day differences. Who's going to come out on top? I honestly don't know. I am a little worried about Joe Burrow in this one. I think as much as this Bengals O-line is better, the Giants have gotten to like everybody in this defensive line. There's just no answers you can have for Dexter Lawrence in the middle of that defense. So
didn't Thibodeau just get surgery too?
AT's out.
Yeah.
But I actually like the under for the first time in the Bengals game. I like the under, and I don't want to say, I just don't have a take on the 3.5 points. I don't love, there's just too many evenly matched stuff that I'm just going to punt on saying who's going to cover one way or the other.
Anarumo blitzed Lamar on half of his dropbacks last week. We're seeing him try to get creative. We always bitch about the fact that the Bengals do not get home with their rush group. So do we think we're going to see more of the same? I think he's going to pressure the hell out of Daniel Jones, right? I mean, he's got to make Daniel see ghosts. He's got to get in his head because Mr. Jones he's been playing a little bit better here. Daniel Jones is starting to look like a real quarterback. But if you go back to last year, he was 41st out of 42 when it came to passers against the blitz. And that's from your previous employers, the Pro Football Focusers. They said out of 42, not 32, 42, Daniel Jones was second worst against pressure. So Anarumo knows that. He's seen the tape. I think we're going to see a lot of pressure. And I do like the under in this one, although you said it was close. If Neighbors is back between the tail of the tape, I think it's not close. It's T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, end of discussion by a mile.
Well, it's definitely them, but I'm saying the Giants receiving core all of a sudden, like,
Slayton looked great last week.
Yeah.
Slayton looked great last week. Both sides of the field, crossing routes, deep balls. He looks good. Daniel Jones looks to be more comfortable. With Neighbors back, you're right. I mean, it's going to be tight, but this Bengals offense has been so freaking good, dude. Joe Burrow has been incredible. It's like we were asking questions about the Bengals. Well, here's half the Bengals showed up, and they showed up as good as they've ever looked. So it depends on which version of this defense shows up and how Anarumo gets after Jones and his response to pressure.
If there is one where it's like, okay, I said the Giants overmatched this Bengals O-line, but I think the Bengals wide receivers really overmatched this Giants secondary. So it could be like hey, 5 out, Joe Burrow, get that ball out of your hands within, a second and a half every single play, and just
that's how you negate. That's how you negate that rush. I mean,
yes.
And I want to give a big shout out to Orlando Brown Jr. He's been playing a lot better at the left tackle position. He didn't struggle a little bit, but relative to his success previously in the league, he struggled a little bit at first. Protecting Joe Burrow, and it wasn't just him, it was the entire group. But I think that both tackles with Mims and Brown have played a lot better, and it gives their offense a lot of luxury there when you've got two tackles, particularly a rookie in there with not a lot of experience who's getting better every week.
All right, let's get to the Bills at the Jets. Jets 2.5-point dogs at home. 40.5 points is the over-under. Head coach going the Bills' way, quite obviously, as the Jets don't have quite a head coach. They have an interim, Jeff Ulbrich. Quarterback going the Bills' way. Receivers going the Jets' way. Backfield tie, O-line Bills, but then defense all going to the Jets. To me, this is one of my favorite bets of the weekend. It's the under. I just 40.5 points. I think the Jets are a team that I think the Bills come out, punch them in the mouth. I think they win going away, but it's like a 20-7 win going away. It's just the Jets, I think, with all that happened this week, I don't think you're going to see their best. I don't think this is a rally the troop situation. I think this is a what the heck is going on sort of situation that you're not going to see everyone all of a sudden be on the same page and have this big turnaround that you envision when you fire your head coach and put in the interim.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about this matchup, it's going to be interesting to see how Josh Allen bounced back from one of his worst statistical football games in the National Football League. You talked about his accuracy, some decisions, some play calling stuff. It just didn't look tremendous from Joe Brady, from the Bills, and their quarterback, Josh Allen. I'm looking to see how he is able to deal with this secondary because, as you and I both know, they've got great corners. They've got guys on the back end. Josh is going to have to make the right decisions. He's going to have to be accurate with the football. The Jets haven't been able to get home to quarterbacks, as well as they have in the past. So that'll be interesting. Josh will have time to throw the football. You and I know that I like the group up front protecting Josh Allen, but it comes down to the decisions he's making, the accuracy of the football. Can he make those guys pay on the back end? I also like the under in this one. I think it's been lackluster, to say the least, from Nathaniel Hackett's creativity standpoint. Aaron Rodgers' performance, obviously 3 picks last week, not something we've grown to expect from Aaron Rodgers. I expect him to bounce back, but I still don't think that this Jets team is an extremely explosive offense. I'd like to see Garrett Wilson be more on the same page with Aaron Rodgers. We saw him have a decent game last week in terms of stats, but you got to go out there and play a clean football game to beat this Jets or to beat this Bills team. We know that they're dangerous.
Yeah, but I do think the last 2 weeks, I'm not sure there's a blueprint, but I do think that the Jets are uniquely qualified to play man coverage against this Bills team. You can just go line up and say, my guys are better than your guys, because flat out, they are from the New York Jets. So
that's where accuracy comes into play with Josh.
Exactly. And that's why I like the under, but also I do think the Bills will transfer to, or at least try to make this a ground-based game. They are going to try to run the football. And who do I trust more to run the football this year, the Jets or the Bills? I think it's quite easily from what we've seen so far, the Buffalo Bills.
From a creativity standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, and just from the fact that this is what they like to do in Buffalo. Yep. And the Jets look like they're playing with one hand behind their back when they try to run the football, which never bodes well for your offense.
All right, let's get to our locks of the week. Those are your games previews. This week, I love Bucks 3.5 against the Saints. It's a rookie 5th rounder. I wouldn't even hate this if Derek Carr was playing, but it's a rookie 5th rounder against the Tampa Bay Bucks. I know Pete Prisco's probably all over that with how much he pumps the Bucks tires every single week. Jacksonville, Chicago, in London, under 44.5. I love
no winner. No winner there. Coward.
Hey, I'm just trying to make money. I'm not trying to prove my acumen. Under 44.5. And then Jalen Polk, the Patriots wide receiver, I have him going over 27.5 receiving yards. He has the past 2 weeks, 13 targets. He is their outside route winner. You watch what they did. I think he had 7 targets against the 49ers, who play almost the exact same defense, obviously, as the Houston Texans. And so I think how they're set up is he is kind of their guy that when they see that single high stuff, he's the one running those mano-a-mano routes on the outside. I trust Drake May to hit him on at least a couple of those, because that's all it's going to take to go over 27.5 receiving yards. I think he's much better at those throws than Jacoby Brissett's ever been. So all that adds up to my 3 locks of the week. Who do you got?
And my 3 locks of the week, I've got the Detroit Lions losing 3 points, going to win against the Dallas Cowboys. Dan Campbell and the boys, they're just too physical. They're too complete of a football team, and I think they're only going to get better as the season goes. You get beat up by this football team, and it hurts. I got them. Also, give me the over in that game. I think both offenses will be all over the place, and I think that Dallas will have no option but to be in a track meet against this Detroit offense who can stay in rhythm with the run and the pass. Jamar Chase also going over 75.5 receiving yards. I wanted to give the catches over, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So give me 75.5 receiving yards. He could get it done on 2 receptions if Joe Burrow can hit him in stride, as we've seen in the past.
I like it. All right, there you have it. We'll be back at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network today, and we'll be back on 9:30 a.m. next Monday, recapping all the football games. Make sure to follow, subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Really helps us out a lot. Until next time, keep pushing.
Peace. Go Bears.